And welcome back, YouTube. This is Buster here with another video. Today, we're going to be doing a full review of the video game 20XX on the Nintendo Switch. Developed and published by the same companies, those companies being Battery Staple Games and Fire Hose Games. 20XX is a roguelike action platformer heavily inspired by the Mega Man franchise. Now in this game, at the start, you will have the ability to choose one of two playable main characters, as you see them right there, Nina in the blue and Ace in the red. Nina is essentially a Mega Man clone whose main ability is to shoot her Mega Blaster, while Ace is essentially a Proto Man type clone with much more up close and personal style weaponry. Basically like swords, he gets these really cool like extendable blades that can kind of extend from his body. Really cool stuff like that. He gets an axe that's super powerful. I do like that quite a bit. And in addition to those two characters, once you beat the game at least once, you can unlock two unlockable characters, which I will share with you once we get past this loading screen. I will say this, the loading screen issue is a bit of a problem. I don't know why, but loading does take a while in this game, so that is a bit unfortunate. Yeah, I don't think it... I understand it's roguelike, so it needs time to load, but when it's pre-installed, you think the loading screen should be cut down a little bit. But however, the two other playable characters once you beat the game are Hawk, whose ability is this Electro Whip, and he gets a lot of Hawk exclusive powers that only Hawk can use and nobody else. The other character is known as Draco. Think of him as the bruiser, the tank. He doesn't get very many special powers, but he's a jack of all trades and can use all of Nina's and Ace's basic attacks, so that's kind of cool. So once you start the game up for the first time, you will actually be thrown into a training area, basically tutorial mode. And this is kind of great because it gets you to learn the ropes of the game without needing to learn it on the fly. That's kind of cool. And another great thing, you could replay it at any time, so if you take a break and come back to it at a later date, and you were in the middle of a run, you don't need to restart the whole game just to relearn the controls. You could just go straight there and be like, oh, okay, I'm good to go again. That's a great feature. Alright, so with that said, let's talk about what you do after the training mode. So after that, you typically go here, where you start the main game, and are tasked with completing 8 stages in a row, and taking down the 8 robot masters that reside at the end of each stage. Basically the big bosses at the end. And then after that, well, you face what is essentially Dr. Wily's castle and the mad scientist themselves that you've seen at the beginning of the video. The story is very basic, really not a whole lot to the story, but it's enough to keep you playing throughout the game. With that said, there are also additional mode types that you have up here. You have Daily Challenge, which changes daily. It gives a preset loadout, and you just try to beat it as fast as you can, with as many points as you can, and then you get ranked on the leaderboard. This is a Daily Hardcore, which is the exact same thing as the regular Daily, however, it adds 3 modifiers that make it much tougher for you. Weekly challenge is the same thing, except for instead of it being daily, it goes throughout the entire week. Same with weekly hardcore. Rush job is a boss rush. You basically fight all the bosses in a row. You may get a little bit of health in between, but that's it. You just try to beat the bosses as fast as you can and without dying. And Seed Racer is actually a really unique thing. You put in whatever randomly generated seed that you want to play. You try to beat it as fast as you can. And then you get ranked on that, on the leaderboard. Or it gives you a chance to play a seed that you just may really, really like. And then if you ever receive that seed in the future run, you know exactly what to do. Alright, and another thing I do want to mention is when you start a new run, oh, sorry about that, you're given 3 difficulty options to choose from. You have essentially easy mode, which is as described, it's easy, and you get 3 lives to beat it. You get normal mode, which doesn't add any modifiers, but you only have 1 life to beat 8 robot bosses and the final boss at the end of the game, so please keep that in mind. And then you have a hard difficulty, which makes the enemies a bit tougher, health drops a little bit less frequent, and can add modifiers to make the game that much more difficult. So that is a pretty fun difficulty options. And I like the fact that they do that. When you first play the game, I highly suggest to play on easy for your first couple of runs. I made the mistake of playing on normal right away, and let me tell you, normal from the get-go is a bit tough. You also have a multiplayer option where you can play co-op throughout the game. I've never tested this, so I don't know how this works, but so I'm not going to review that part, but I've heard it works pretty alright for those who have played it. So when you're traveling, or not traveling, but when you're playing through the game, you'll run into more than just enemies. You'll run into randomly generated health and energy vending machines that will, for a price, will give you some health. Shops where you can spend your hard-earned nuts to buy augs, repos, or body armor. Boxes that could give you weapons, augs, or body armor. Challenge rooms, which at the end will always give you a nice piece of equipment / body armor. And the very vaguely named a very safe laboratory. And at the end of the levels, you can also test your luck at slot machines that are randomly generated. They're not at the end of every level, but they do appear at the end of some levels. And at the slot machine, you have a chance to win health, energy, nuts, augments, even pieces of armor. Or, the best thing of all, absolutely nothing. Assuming you have tokens to play the slot machine. Tokens can be earned from killing enemies and getting them from random drops, or in between each failed run, you could spend soul chips to buy tokens. Currency in this game comes in 3 forms. You have tokens, which of course I just explained you could spend on the slot machine. You have nuts, which is the basic currency of a run. Nuts do not carry from one run to another. You have to spend it all in that run, or else they're gone forever. And it's what you buy pretty much everything in a run with. Anything at a shop, anything in a vending machine, you have to use nuts to buy them. And the last form of currency is something called soul chips. Soul chips can only be earned from defeating bosses or defeating glowing enemies that are called soul-charged enemies. Soul chips cannot be spent during a run, however, can be spent back at the hub world in between runs on new augments that you can unlock for future runs and get them for that particular run that you just bought them for. Permanent augments, which I will explain about in a minute, or pre-bought augments at a cheaper price, but they're only good for that one run. And you can also buy tokens with soul chips as well. So that is the form of currency throughout the game. Now we're going to talk about probably the most time-consuming, but most, one of the biggest reasons you're going to come back to this game, one of the biggest reasons this game is so much fun to play, and that is the data lore. The data lore stores everything you get. Every time that you buy a new augment for the first time, it is unlocked in the data lore. Every time you get a piece of body armor for the first time, it is unlocked in the data lore. Every time you get a repo, an experimental prototype aug, a weapon, a new boss ability, or every time that you encounter a new enemy, or destroy one of the game's bosses, it is all unlocked in the data lore. Think of it as kind of like a completionist book to get 100% in a game. I don't know if you get anything if you unlock everything in the data lore. I am close, but there are still a few things that I am missing myself in order to have a completed data lore. Now in this, we're going to talk about all the different types of things that you can collect in this particular game. We're going to start with the augs, or augmentations. Augs are the most basic form of upgrade that you can get, and they will affect either you, the character itself, or the world around you. They have a wide range of effects that they could do. They could do anything from +1 life with the life extender. They could let you attack through shields and walls. Let me see if I could find the correct aug here real quick. This one looks like a DBZ Scouter, the Quantum Spook. It allows you to shoot through any normally obstruction barrier, except for boss doors. Boss doors are still immune to this, where you cannot shoot through it, but everything else you could shoot through. Including enemy shields, which is very nice against certain enemies that are shielded. And even slow down the world around you. Where's the last aug I want to share with you? It looks like it's a really weird one. Okay. I'm not seeing it, so I will... Oh, there it is. The World Slug, which will slow down all platforms. So it's not moving as fast in case you're not as skilled at jumping, which is a very nice plus. So Augs with their wide range of effect are definitely the heart and soul of the game and can make or break any run depending on which Augs you obtain throughout that run. Body armor, depending on the type of armor we're looking at, they have a wide range of effects as well. Leg armor typically gives you either better jumping ability, some will let you fly for a short distance, some will let you hover for a short distance. Core armor will typically give you some sort of shield or make you completely immune to knockback, which is very nice. Arm armor will typically either make you shoot faster or increase the charge, basically make you more powerful of a shot. And the head armor will typically give you a bit of a more random effect, sometimes affecting the items that you pick up. Let me see. And sometimes just affecting other things, like sometimes if you get the higher speed you have, the more power damage you do. Just kind of weird stuff like that. And then the cool thing is if you get all of a particular set, you get an additional bonus. Like for instance, if you get all the gold set equipped at the same time, you're completely immune to all traps. So like any electrical traps or beams that would damage you normally, you are completely immune to it, and you could just stand there and be like, oh, not hurt by it, and it's fantastic. If you can, I definitely recommend finding one armor suit that you really like the best and trying to go with it throughout the entire game. Let's go down to powers real quick. Powers are only obtainable by defeating one of the 8 robot masters throughout the game. And they range in ability to what they do. Some will just deal massive amount of damage. Some can be thrown in any direction, while others can actually be used to disable traps, such as the Force Nova can disable any type of beam ability. And the Penguin's Ice Shot, where is it? Is it the shot? Yeah, the shot. No. Which one is it? This one right here. The Splinter Frost can freeze over any flame spouts throughout the game. Another cool thing, the Shade Spur, which I thought was the useless ability at first, is actually pretty cool because it could lock in place any platform that normally appears and disappears. It locks it in place permanently as long as it's on screen, which I think is a fantastic ability. Definitely useful in the later levels. Of course, in order to use the power will drain the blue bar on the screen there. And once you run out of power, you are no longer able to use those bosses' powers until you obtain more. Let's talk about the repos next. Repros are essentially options from Gradius with varying effects. Some will do normal attack damage by like shooting random bullets at your enemies. One will give you a protection shield, and it can be multiplied, so if you find multiple of that same repo, you can have 2 or 3 orbiting shields around you to block any projectile shots. One will give you protection from falling in a bottomless pit. One will give you extended life. Basically, it'll collect extra life that you find, and when you reach the basically go into red life, low health, it'll pop and give you basically heal you to half health. And one will even revive you if you die, and I think that's pretty cool. The last thing I want to talk about as far as the collectability of this game and augments is the prototype augs. These can only be obtained in a very safe laboratory, which will randomly appear during runs, and they give the most game-altering effects in this particular out of all of them. Where's the one I want to talk about here? Yes, the Zookeeper's Burden is one I want to talk about. For instance, this one is very game-affecting. You'll get one of each repo instantly. So you get 8 repos in total, which is a pretty great deal. However, for the rest of the run, not for the level, for the rest of the run, you cannot attack or use bosses' powers throughout the rest of the run. You can only jump and rely on the attack damage of the repos to win you the game. It is high risk, high reward. Where's the other one I want to talk about? Interesting Times. This one is essentially D&D rules. Sometimes you'll get +6 health. Awesome. Other times you'll get -5 health. And when I say -5 health, I'm not talking about 5 hits of damage. I mean, you go from having 12 total health bars to having 7 total health bars. Like it's permanent damage. And it does it for each of your stats. For health, for energy, for power level, for strength, for jump, and for speed. And let me tell you, that one is probably my least favorite one out of them because it's completely random and you could literally die from it if you roll a high damage count and you have low health. You literally can kill yourself with that one. It's not very fun. So I like to call these the high risk, high reward, or high risk, high reward, because some of the reward isn't really worth the risk at all. Definitely just fun. I understand why they're in the game. They're kind of just thrown in there just to be fun little things that you don't have to get, but they're there if you want to challenge yourself. And I like that. Alright. So, now that I've talked about the data lore and everything that I want to talk about it is time to talk about the core mechanics of the game. I'm talking about the graphics, the music, and the controls. The first thing I want to talk about is the graphics. The graphics of the game, as you can see, are heavily inspired by 16-bit graphics of yore, and I gotta say, I love it. Sprite-like graphics like this I've always loved them, and I always will. The character designs in this game, while heavily inspired by other franchises, are still unique enough and just changed enough to appreciate them and really enjoy them. It's familiar, yet different at the same time, if you know what I'm saying. The bosses in each level, throughout the game for that matter, are actually done really well. And I gotta say the design for them is actually pretty well done for what they are. And they don't follow any type of theme. They're all very unique, and I like that quite well. Uh, Another thing that I really like about this game, so in this game, the setting is essentially you're on a space station, right? And each level has its own elements about it. Like the background here, you can tell is very snow inspired. But is it really there? Is it just a hologram? To where the platforms you're actually on, while they still fit the theme of the level, they feel you still have that technology, like scientist lab feel, which really makes the game feel like you're in a man-made biodome with some holograms in it. And I gotta say, if that was what they were going for, they did it spot on. They really, really perfected that. Like, is that snow really there, or is it just hologram snow, you know? Is it just look like it's there, but it's not? Oh, that's a bad weapon. The only graphics that I don't care for in this game belong to the basic enemy design. It feels very uninspired and just bland, and enemies get stronger, of course, by different colors, or just getting a little bit beefier in size. And my other major complaint about the graphics of this game is the text is too small. In my opinion, the text needed to be a little bit bigger, especially when you're in the data lower screen. That, I mean, come on. How's anybody supposed to read that? In my opinion, that I wish it had like a zoom-in view, like you could kind of zoom it in on the side. That would be fantastic. But, or if you had an option where you could click on the item and it brought up like a big image of it and a big text lower of it, that would be awesome. You could have this for like the quick find and then the close-up for if you just want to view it close up. But I understand that they probably didn't have the time or resources to do that, so I guess it is what it is. I just wish the text was a bit bigger. I will say this, the controls of the game feel very, very tight. When you jump and stop in midair, you have no momentum carried. You just drop dead on, which is great for platforming like this, because when you have little platforms to land on and you could just dead drop, it makes it a lot easier than having to predict momentum ability. And also, when you're running and you stop running, you come to a dead stop. You don't carry momentum with you, which once again works for a Mario type game, but for this game, it's actually better because you could save yourself from jumping into a trap or something like that. The only time you don't, which I'm actually kind of glad I started on the ice level, is when you're on ice. You actually have to build up a little momentum to get going, and then you will actually slide off if you don't hold back on the button, which is a very realistic mechanic. The only time that I really ever had issues with the controls is when I'm charging, dashing, and jumping at the same time. Sometimes something won't always work, which may just be the controller not wanting to respond to 3 button presses at the same time, other than the game not wanting to respond to 3 button presses at the same time. So with that said, let's talk about the last thing, the music. As you can hear, the music is fantastic. I have absolutely no complaints about the music whatsoever. It's great, rockin', chiptune, 16-bit era music, and I love it. Definitely Mega Man feeling, and that is what they were definitely going for. So with all that said, I think I'm going to say my final thoughts on this game and give my official rating. This is a very good game. You definitely tell that a lot of polish, a lot of time went into making this game, and that is a great thing. The graphics are great. The controls are nearly spot on. The music is fantastic. There's enough stuff to collect for a completionist to keep you playing hours on end. I put in close to 30-35 hours on this game and I still haven't got everything. My only issue with collectability is the OGs that you receive in the very safe laboratories, because those randomly spawn. You have no control over when you're going to get those. Another fun thing with roguelikes in particular, this one too, the randomization of the spawns for augments, the spawns for health machines also give each run a breath of fresh air. On the double-edged sword reverse side of the randomization can sometimes screw you when you're in the middle of a run too. Sometimes you're just getting bad augs, that ain't going to help you. Other times you're not getting health machines when you need them, and it's just going to cost you a run. But that's the roguelike nature of any roguelike game. The basic enemy design, not all that original, not impressed by. And the text. The text is a big thing. I really wish the text was larger. My eyesight isn't the greatest, and let me tell you, I could barely read it when it's on the Nintendo Switch screen like this for stuff on the data lore. It's downright puny. With all these issues, I still find this a game that I would highly recommend to anybody who loves Mega Man, who loves action-adventure 2D platformers. This is a fantastic game I would highly recommend to most people. With that said, my final verdict on the game, 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed this game a lot, and I think you would too, if you ever have a chance to play it. This has been Booster Box Buster with the review of 20XX for the Nintendo Switch, signing out. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please leave a like, comment on this video if you enjoyed it. Peace.